Y'all should be good.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for your patience as we're getting this live. Just a couple more minutes with some technical difficulties and we should be good to go.
Oh, nice house
Hey now.
Hey.
Oh, that was a good placement at the DFW.
He like he knew what you were doing.
Well,
That was very patriotic.
well, thank y'all all for joining us for our first in-person, or I should say our first hybrid meeting of the year. DFW-SEM has been around for 17 years, and we survived the pandemic like the rest of you.
We are survivors.
So this wouldn't be possible without a lot of people. We've got our treasurer, Chris O'Connor, who helped us today, bringing all the food and beverages, Secretary Jade Myers, who's helping us stream, Jenna Williams was probably the one that checked you in, our VP of Hospitality and our VP of Membership, Amal and Bart, weren't able to make it tonight. We've also got our VP of Sponsorship, Jordan, and then our board at large, Tim Shane. A big thank you to City Central. They are actually sponsoring this meeting. We wouldn't be able to host it if it weren't for them. So they're a great networking or community working space. They've got a couple of different locations around DFW. I visited 2 of their locations, would highly recommend them if you're looking for a co-working space. And you get a discount because you know us. So if y'all are interested in being a volunteer, let us know. We always could use an extra set of hands. And very aptly, find us on social. Share the content that you're learning tonight. Let people know that you like DFW-SEM. For State of Search, we have our annual conference that is still going on this year. It's going to be a hybrid event. Tickets are available now. We've got 2 of our speakers confirmed, Eric Enge and Greg Gifford. We're also going to have some speakers that don't have the same first and last letter name. That being said, I can't speak for too much because I am Julie Jones. And then also, if you're looking to become a member, we've got a couple of different membership levels. You can talk to any one of the board members and find out how you can be a part of us. If you are hiring, let us know. We've got a job board that's live, gets lots of visibility, and we can also connect you with some of our members. If you are viewing this virtually, remember that we want to still make this accessible for y'all. So if you click in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the closed captions. Our next meeting is going to be a 3-4-5 talk, which is where anybody gets the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes, for 5 minutes with 3 slides on any subject. So it's a great opportunity to learn how to public speak and kind of get your name out there. So
That's great.
go onto our website. We've got some opportunities to pitch to speak. And then at the end of this, let us know what you think. Did we do a good job? By filling out our survey. And with that, we'll go ahead and start the presentation. So do we want to start off with some introductions? I'll start with you, Jasmine.
All right, awesome. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jasmine Berry, and I'm a freelance social media marketing manager for my own company, Spooky Liz Consulting. The name stems from an old family name. I've been called that my whole life, and I thought it was super unique to call my business that. And I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and just went full-time last year.
Congratulations.
I'm Jessica Nunez, and I'm founder and president of TruePoint Communications. We started 15 years ago in August. We celebrated our 15th year. and we are a top 100 marketing communications agency in the nation. And we have two teams. We have a Marcom, marketing communications team, and a digital media practice group. A team of about 40 integrated marketing communications professionals working with brands like AT&T, Mary Kay, Sally Beauty, to startup brands, helping them propel their brand forward in the digital media space. I'm happy to be here in person.
Yes.
And hi to our virtual friends too. Hello.
My name is Tilissa Bell Navarro. I am the Senior Social Media Manager over at Idea Growth. We specialize in both B2B and technology. Previous lives include working social over at TGI Fridays and also community managing at the Container Store. Super happy to be here and just collaborate. And also, this is probably my first people-y thing that I've done post-COVID. So, hi.
I am also loving back into people-y things. My name is Heather Nichols, and I have a boutique marketing agency called The Marketing Matrix. It's full-service digital, so helping everybody to reach their ideal clients and referral sources with an integrated marketing plan and a single sign-on dashboard where they can manage their entire marketing, so in one suite. And we serve companies from small to small, not quite mid-size. And are just happy to serve because people are our passion. Everybody's on digital, so let's be where they are. All right.
Okay. So I wanted to start off with my first question, which is about Clubhouse. I've been hearing a lot about it, and is this here to stay, or is this another trend? If so, if it's here to stay, like, how should we be leveraging it? So what do y'all want to? Yeah.
I would love to, I'm a big fan of social audio market in general, and I'll just expand it beyond Clubhouse because I think it's important to recognize the social audio market, which includes TikTok and Twitter Spaces, and Facebook has come out with its own competitive or its own platform to compete with Clubhouse. I think social audio is for sure here to stay. They're saying it as like, if you're podcasting, it's a great supplement to your podcasting, to building it out. But from a thought leadership perspective, it's a great opportunity to build thought leadership and build community relationship. Is it going to take off and I think grow quickly into like corporate America, into our corporate marketing strategies? I think it's going to start more so with the startup businesses, the ones who don't have to run everything through HR, legal, and IT. Clubhouse in particular has its own technical challenges with it. As far as like, if you've been on Clubhouse, you notice the first thing they did was grab your contacts, went straight into your phone. And so, there are some challenges around that, but I think that one of the things you're seeing that they're doing really well is they're building a really sharp team. They've hired a really great CMO. They're trying to build a community of creators, much like TikTok did. So I think they have the benefit of coming behind a brand like TikTok to grow a really great following. And I think what'll be interesting is when we talk a year from now, how the social audio market shakes out. It'll be like, who's the Coke and the Pepsi of the market? And that's what I'm watching right now and curious about. So are we lobbying our clients in there right now? We're not. We're watching it, we're educating, but we're not throwing them out there.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I see it more as a personal branding opportunity, which even if businesses are there, they're not presenting themselves as the business, they're presenting as their John Smith, their Susan Sly, their actual real names. And so leveraging that from a personal level, there are a lot of C-suite executives and other high-level entrepreneurs who are very active there. They actually do have the bandwidth and the time freedom to invest in that way. And they're really finding others of similar thought leadership to bond with. In fact, my husband, Tim Nichols, who is in the audience today, he already is a thought leader in his own right, and I'm going to sound biased because I'm his wife and I dote on him too. But he's made some very powerful connections by being very intentional. I think when you're on Clubhouse, it's important, and it shouldn't be exclusive just to Clubhouse, but you should be intentional with making a connection, not just to be a participant, but to be a contributor to the conversation. So whenever we're serving and being a person of value to that conversation, it's going to reciprocate and earn dividends. So I think in being intentional on Clubhouse or any other platform, trying to take the conversation, make some connections, and have a next conversation with individuals as opposed to looking at it as a group format. It may start in a group format, a group conversation, but if you're intentional, you're going to take it to a very personal level, whether it's a virtual call or something where you can just continue that conversation. That's where it gets really rich and powerful. So we just need to all ask ourselves, are we being intentional or are we just participating today?
Okay. So speaking of being intentional, a lot of people have been pretty intentional about their dance moves on TikTok, which has just grown over, the past year. Why so much growth? Like, what is going on with that?
I think it's a lot to do with like influencers too. I know from my personal experience with TikTok, I'm usually on it for about a couple hours. Midnight.
I get the little update that says you can take a break now.
Yes, I just get past it. But there's just a wealth of information on there. You're being entertained, you're being inspired, you're learning how to cook, you're learning how to clean. I mean, you're just learning how to do so many things on TikTok. And I think that's why people gravitate towards it more, because it's so much more relatable, than Instagram or your Facebook or your Twitter. It's just something that I can pop on in, like, oh, okay, what am I going to learn today? What am I going to be entertained with today with TikTok? I know a lot of my clients right now, we're gravitating towards moving towards that way with TikTok. Not so much Clubhouse, because we're trying to figure out, well, first, coming from a freelance perspective, we're figuring out, do we have enough bandwidth, enough content to speak on, to be on Clubhouse, to be intentional, for that community. But right now we are, kind of sticking to our Facebook and Instagram, but kind of moving towards that TikTok way, because, it's really, it's popular.
Yeah. So how have y'all seen TikTok shape social media overall? Or is it just one of those things where anybody with dance moves can join? And
It's so far past it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, to me, it's made social media an official entertainment platform. I was telling somebody the other day, it's brands have to move into thinking about social media as entertainment, and that there's a win-win. There's something in it for the customer or the user or the viewer, the listener, whatever platform you're using. And if you think about what is in it for them first, rather than what's in it for the brand, as marketers, we're always like, what's the objective for the brand?
Yeah.
What is the objective for the consumer?
That's right.
What kind of experience, feeling do we want them to have from this? And I think TikTok has validated that it does work for brands, and that it isn't just about, it's a phenomenal entertainment platform. I think as a user myself, what I would say is like, I find myself, like, you would sit down and watch a TV show. Like you were saying, you sit down for a couple hours. I'll sit down for an hour and watch TikTok and be like, okay, I need to go do. I need to have a life. Right?
Yeah, it's very entrancing.
Yes. And so, and then it also has a great algorithm that is beneficial to creators. And so, as Jasmine was talking about influencers, it's a creator economy on TikTok. And so, everything you've seen with influencers, the influencers on Instagram are, hightailing it over and have been for 2020. And you're asking, like, what happened with TikTok? Yeah. Influencers saw that they could do so much more on TikTok and see a greater revenue stream from that. And so, I think that's what's been great about it.
And Instagram is kind of all, I'm sure you all have seen, the
Big
video.
As they always do.
Shift their focus because they're having to compete with TikTok.
Yes.
And they laid out, these 4 focuses: messaging, shopping. I think it was creators, and then video. And so it's definitely making a shift. It's making all of these other platforms pay attention and trying to figure out how they can, make their consumer their objective. So, with TikTok, you literally can learn so much. You can be sitting there for hours, learning, being entertained, and then it does curate, the type of content that you want to see. You can change it. You don't necessarily.
Oh, you teach it? You
Yes.
teach it to follow the content you want, which is the first platform to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you no longer have to rely on, I'm so tired of seeing Jessica's kids all the time.
Right.
If I'm not engaging in that, TikTok figures that out really quickly and sends me more
It
cooking
Right.
things or more life hacks or more just funny living, hashtag adulting, right?
Yeah.
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 So, and
You
that's,
train it for what you want to see.
Yeah.
And you can get hyper local too, which is kind of disturbing. There is Dallas TikTok, there is Texas
Yeah.
TikTok, which is very funny watching Californians move over into Texas and then join into Texas TikTok.
yeah, and pick that up.
Yeah.
You know, one of my to your point, one of my favorite things I've seen is the water holes of Texas. You know, as you notice TikTok paying attention to where you're at and what you follow, you start getting best places to eat in Texas, best travel adventures in Texas, best water holes. Things I never thought I wanted to know that all of a sudden I'm intrigued by because TikTok has paid attention to other parts, other content that I liked and is feeding it to me in the best way that any platform has ever done.
Which will make you watch more of it because it's dialed into you.
Yep.
Which makes me ponder and wonder because Facebook has done such a fantastic job of collecting all of our data, unfortunately. But the fact that TikTok is able to curate the content so incredibly well, I'm curious, what does it look like on the back end of their system of like, hey, here's the file on one particular person, here's all of their interests and all of these things, because we do know that TikTok ads are they're expensive. But I feel like it's going to probably be the next big advertising frontier. But you can't do ads like you would do on other platforms. What you have to do is you have to curate the content in order to match into the TikTok environment. Otherwise, people cannot scroll away fast enough from the ad. I mean, Twitter ads are often met with a lot of volatility. Instagram ads are tolerated, and so are Facebook. But I feel like it's going to be very much like that Twitter type mentality, like, oh, it's an ad and it's not a good ad. Just please get it off my screen as fast as possible.
I agree. I think what's cool about TikTok is they are really working better than any other platform with advertisers.
Yes.
They care so much about that experience that you just talked about that I think what's really cool is you're seeing a lot of ads. I don't know about you guys as users, but when I've been on TikTok, sometimes, oh, that's an ad.
Yes.
I'm watching a few seconds in and I don't even realize, and I think that's attributed this summer, or I guess it feels like the summer, it's COVID, kind of coming out of COVID, but sometime this year, I got to hear TikTok and head of marketing of TikTok and Instagram, and they spoke on a joint call that was really fascinating to talk about kind of their different approaches. And what I appreciated about TikTok was that they are working on programs really dedicated to advertisers.
Yeah, they
And-
coach. They
yeah.
have their own webinars and they actually coach. Like I've sat in on one of them and they literally said, "Don't make ads, make TikToks."
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that's
that's absolutely crucial. And I was like, that makes so much sense. It sounds very simple, but for so many advertisers and marketers, I don't know why there's this disconnect in social between like a regular organic social post and a social ad, and like the demeanor is supposed to be so different between the two when it really should feel as organic as possible.
Absolutely.
You're back to the entertainment though.
Yeah,
That's what
yes.
we're talking about. Because we want to shift people's state of mind, that emotion that you mentioned earlier, Jasmine. That's what makes people respond. And so if you want to spark the emotion, ads don't spark anything but negative emotion. If it's an obvious, blatant ad. But if it's
Storytelling.
entertaining,
Yeah.
educational or entertaining, now you're going to have a shift. People respond to that, and I think that's universal on any platform.
Absolutely.
I like to think that TikTok is creating these like little communities or little lifestyles. One of my favorite things to watch on TikTok, the Get Ready With Me, it's super basic. People are literally washing their dishes and lighting a candle or, making their bed. But it kind of sparks this, this emotional factor like, let me go make my bed up or let me go get my life together. But
You're inspired.
Yeah, you're feeling inspired. There's some type of emotional response happening with that. And that's why I really, hope that TikTok can kind of, really be that piece of a platform.
I think what you're talking
Yeah.
It's not.
the relatability of that media too, meaning it's not overproduced, it's not some professional
Right.
camera crew coming in,
Yeah,
it's
we
just
saw in 2020.
people in a room,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and Instagram has shifted to that. Like, I almost have a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth with Instagram because now that content is so hyper curated. Meanwhile, on TikTok, you have men impersonating women by putting like a hand towel on their head and doing skits, and it's part of the charm is that it's not perfectly polished and super well done. But then on Instagram, you have to hit the pose just right, and
Yeah.
The drink has to look absolutely
I think
impeccable.
we're over that. We've been through.
We don't like it.
Yeah, like, yeah, we've been through a lot in the past year, and I think what you've seen is, I think a great example was during the pandemic, the brands like Nike and Adidas, the big powerhouses of creative and advertising, they did unpolished advertising.
Yes.
And they put out what they could by just scrimping it all together. And I think what at least in America, in our population, we saw was we resonated with that. We said, thank you for meeting me where I'm at. And I think that authenticity is going to be really important. Brands who don't continue to live through that authenticity are going to see less click through. They're going to see less engagement, and then ultimately, they're going to have people who are like, "No, I see you. Yeah, I don't need that."
I think it's metaphorically like the Hollywood who's who with their makeup off kind of thing. Like, oh, okay, Jennifer, I see you're a real person too.
Yeah.
I watch more
COVID
Jennifer.
led
I've
for a
seen
lot
her
of that.
Right.
COVID caused a huge shift in.
Are you talking about the being makeup free part?
Yeah, all of it. I mean, I have a little bit on, but I will tell you, Zoom calls, like, for I think everybody month 1, I'm gonna look my best on my Zoom call. Month 3.
But there's filters now.
Yeah, and there's filters because
That's
I think
right.
Zoom realized. But the really interesting thing to me about TikTok is I've seen how TikTok has influenced all other social platforms in terms of how people produce their content. Now, when you look at Facebook posts or Instagram Reels, which, let's be honest, it's TikTok. They had to do it in order to stay relevant. And my favorite thing is just watching TikTok creators literally lift their video and put it into Reels, and you can still see the TikTok logo. But the entire style of how social is being produced and communicated, at least in video style and your verticals, it's entirely influenced by TikTok now. And I see TikTok becoming the new tastemaker, which I'm sure Zuckerberg is not pleased with that at all.
It'd be really interesting to see how it responds because you're like you said, you're seeing the TikTok logo pop up on Instagram. You're seeing it on Facebook too. In fact, you're seeing Facebook suggest it to you. And I find that really interesting, and it'll be over this next year to see where they go. What I think is also interesting with TikTok is that the For You page. I'm really interested how more platforms will engage with or do the digging into the algorithm and what that will look like in shaping and changing Instagram and Facebook in particular. I also think, and you haven't gotten there yet, but you touched on Twitter a little bit. Somebody touched on Twitter a little bit. I think Twitter's back.
Oh yeah, 2020 brought it back.
Yeah.
Roaring.
Yes.
We got time to talk about something.
Yes. That's true. And so I think there's been this, while TikTok has been growing exponentially, meanwhile Twitter has come back, and it's been almost like for the professionals or the older demographic that's like, I don't know what y'all are doing over there with TikTok, but I'm on Twitter and I'm engaging. And we were just talking with somebody today who's like, all these healthcare professionals and surgeons and the medical community, and just as we were talking about the sub communities that are on TikTok, there's Twitter continues to grow with these sub communities and these genres and groups that are connecting in really deep ways, and so it's also a positive environment where Facebook, as a marketer, I'm like, no Facebook, because trolling and negativity and
It's too
too political, yeah. And so it's really tough to kind of see the kind of engagement you want and make that investment when there's so much negativity.
Okay, so I want to go back to one of the things that you said earlier about how, this social audio space. Tell me more about that. Is that going to continue to permeate? Are we going to see more clubhouses around? Or
There's lots
Twitter
of
Spaces. LinkedIn's experimenting with it too, which I think honestly that is a really smart move for professional networking. I think that this last year everybody just got exhausted with Zoom, and so when Twitter, so I'm an Android user, so I got left out of Clubhouse, like tiny violin. But I know better. I know iPhone's great, but I love my Android.
Violet is really old iPhone.
Yeah, but now Clubhouse has opened things up to Android, but it's just now. But there's a huge population that didn't get exposed to Clubhouse, and guess what? We hung out and played around in Twitch Spaces instead. I think that is not going to go anywhere. I saw really cool stuff happening with Twitter Spaces where people would go in. I saw artists sampling music. I saw business advice being given. There was, young professionals going in, and they're like, okay, what are your questions? And other people will volunteer information, and it became just like this fantastic exchange of information. Probably similar to Clubhouse, since I didn't get to experience it. But I think it's a lot more accessible, and for people that don't want to join yet another social platform, because let's face it, everybody does have limited bandwidth to do all the things. I think you're probably going to see your bigger social platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter starts to dominate Clubhouse, and Clubhouse will probably be for the purists that adopted it from the get-go.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see where the celebrities shake out in all this, because what Clubhouse did capture is the celebrity, the fandom piece of it. And so Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, all the sharks, I don't know what Cuban, but the rest of them, music producers had a big play in there. And so Hollywood really, coming out of California probably, adopted Clubhouse. But what people, I think, will have to kind of go a little higher up, like 50,000 feet up, and remember that social audio like Twitch and Discord have been around for decades. And Twitch has a huge revenue stream for its creators. It has a huge community. It's not just gaming anymore. And so there's social audio is here to stay.
I agree.
How things shake out in the next year is what's going to be really interesting to watch and see how that plays out.
Here's why I totally agree with you that social audio is here to stay. And I'm going to go way back several decades pre-internet to make my point. Ever since the Victrola came up and people started having radios in their homes, they've been listening to stuff. And then TV came around. Then they watched and listened to stuff. But as the Americana got busier and busier, we're still listening to stuff. We don't care where it comes from. We're dialed in. We're listening. And now since COVID has hit and there are more people, more of the workforce working remotely and at home, and they're trying to juggle their business and personal life together, they might have a kid on the hip. And there might be a video or a Zoom going on, but they're listening on mute while they're bouncing around doing their stuff.
Or even think about the executive who is not a video content creator, or the company that is not comfortable or have the aesthetic of video creation.
That's very valid.
Social audio gives them the opportunity, podcasting gives them the opportunity to do that. And it's low cost. It's easy to jump in and do it on the fly. And so I think that's another selling point for people, for brands.
So what kind of brands would you recommend jumping into this space? Or is it, pretty much if you've got the bandwidth, you should go for it? And when they do, what kind of content should they create? Should they go more for the entertaining aspect like TikTok, or more of an educational aspect? What's the value there?
Well, I know for one company that I use, Canva, as a content creation piece, they have an area where you can actually upload your audio on a picture or something like that. So it is more accessible, for you if you're not, the aesthetically pleasing place where you can do the videos. You can, put like a stock photo or something on there, or even one of my favorite websites to use for stock videos, Pexels. You can put, a relevant video, on the Instagram Square, dynamic, and then, put your audio on top. So that way, there's still some relevance, there's still some movement, there's still something that you're listening to with your content. So I think all of these platforms, they're noticing that, okay, we got to get on board. We got to make it accessible, for small and medium, large businesses to be able to put the audio on there as well.
So what you're saying, Jasmine, is that it's just so much easier for even a non-technical person and technical people. Of course, the technical people already know how to whip out a couple of series of videos, but even the non-technical who may feel like, to what y'all were also talking about, they're not aesthetically ready to be on camera, that you can still create content. You can still stop their scroll in whatever feed that they're on and get a message across. There's a way to communicate there. Something else that you were asking us about earlier is, what kind of brands would we recommend to get on which platforms, yes or no, sort of a thing. So I always think in terms of scalability. Clubhouse, not scalable. It's an individual interaction. It's have to be intentional. It's not a bad thing. You just have to judge, is this where you're going to invest your time? And with your customer or the end in mind also, kind of double with that perspective. Whereas if you're looking at TikTok or any other platform, is it scalable for you to do that? So I always think in terms of scalability first. And so for that reason, a lot of times I have to say, swipe off Clubhouse. I don't have time for you. Not right now. Whereas if it's 4:30 in the morning, my husband might already be on Clubhouse. He's very intentional. He's not trying to necessarily scale that. It's just with a different, back to intention, being clear on what you're there for. You can build some priceless relationships with some major movers and shakers on Clubhouse. So if you're wanting to go for those thought leaders and make that kind of connection, do it.
I think it's a land grab right now on social audio spaces like Clubhouse, and so there is that opportunity for the relationship marketing and for those kinds of that kind of relationship building. One of my friends is a writer for a social media publication who was telling me about a great case study of a university and a pizza company. And so the university had students joining, had hundreds of students joining the area, and they were kind of talking about whatever career they were going into, whatever field. And for the students who stepped up to participate and they were asked to come on stage and share, the pizza company slid into their Instagram and shared a coupon, or like it was like a free pizza or something. And so for the pizza company, it was great exposure, and they were so they were sponsoring the room, and they were in the room, so they were getting a lot of visibility. And you think about the cost of that kind of engagement with your target audience. Significant. That was so low cost, so easy to do. Just think of some marketer who popped open their cell phone, during the evening and listened into these college students chatting, and then he was just sitting there, sending, coupons for them to redeem. You can track that. You can connect with them. You're doing it from the Instagram handle of the pizza company. And I just thought, great way for a small brand. And so as you think about local brands, startup brands, small companies, I think that's the kind of opportunity there is. You see a lot of consultants on Clubhouse. So if I was a consultant and I needed to really share my expertise and my thought leadership with a target audience that could hire and engage me, that's a great opportunity to do so. You see like a lot of life coaches, business coaches. That'll be what's interesting. Like for me, I've kind of heard, I feel like every business coach you could hear, if you just jump on Clubhouse for a minute, there's so many rooms dedicated to that and their expertise. And so for me, that was a little bit of what I didn't enjoy. Like, I'd rather like flip over to a channel that is like inspiring or educational, where I can like really grab something and not hear somebody, pound their chest. It's like, I'm over that. But I do really like that pizza company college or the university example. I thought was a great example of how a brand can be successful.
That's good.
So you mentioned something that I'm super passionate about, being able to track your marketing efforts. So
that was genius.
for those that aren't as familiar with the tracking space, like what sort of KPIs am I looking at? Like how should I measure whether or not my social media was successful? Or should I just track it all? Impressions, clicks, likes?
Depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the clients that we work with, they're smaller companies, and so they're just trying to get their name out there. So we're focusing on brand awareness, and they particularly want more traffic to their website.
Right.
We've told them that, hey, yes, it would be great if we can push leads for you guys all the time. It's like, but as we've all learned, downloading a white paper does not make you a qualified lead, and putting stuff behind gates is not necessarily the way to attract leads, but helping. I think social should always be helpful, and that's the biggest thing for me. So just driving clicks and traffic to articles, blog posts, things of that nature that are informative to them, paying attention to how long the sessions are, paying attention to the bounce rates on where you're driving your things. And I think you should do this through paid, but you can also do this through organic too. But I say paid because you're able to do a lot more targeting with it. You're able to go beyond your own current audience. I think paid is absolutely crucial for social.
100%.
It's a lot of people are under the impression that if I just post it on organic social, it will grow, and
That's the long game.
10 years
That's
ago.
like SEO. That's the long
Yeah,
game.
if you have 300,000 followers, then yeah, sure, you're gonna definitely grow and get the clicks and the traction that you want. But if you're small, you do have to pay for social up front in order to get to that level. And I think that's a big disconnect. but that's also what's going to help drive your insight. So that's my take for brand awareness.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in having integrated reporting too, so that
Yes.
you can reverse engineer, like, hey, if I do get a conversion or an actual purchase from my e-commerce, how can I look at that path as to where it originated from? So here we are talking about social media. I would love to know, well, how much traffic to my website did come from TikTok, and then what was their click path after they got to my site? So it really needs to be integrated, and then we can look at the entire funnel. So I think that we should look at the whole thing, not just on a per platform basis, and then reverse track back from where that conversion came from. And if you haven't got any conversions yet, then you might need to audit some things.
Yeah, it helps you figure out where to spend time too. by
Yeah,
doing all those
Absolutely.
things.
What's working, what's not,
Yeah.
where should I be, what should I repeat more of, do less,
What do I turn
change,
off?
A/B testing somebody was talking about earlier.
Yes.
I think that brands, have always been, it's bottom line sales. Right? So if it doesn't generate revenue, why am I doing it? I do feel like social media has finally gotten to a point where brands are realizing, oh, this is also sentiment and brand reputation.
Yes.
And a year ago, I don't think they were there. And what happened in the pandemic is we became human, and there was no human interaction together except for social media.
Yeah.
And so as a we got forced into it, and as a public, we began to accept that these companies even became human in a way. Like there's this humanistic piece of engaging with a brand. And I think that brands are now realizing the value and that sentiment and that loyalty and that engagement. And many are now saying that's okay if we're not getting direct sales from there, because we see the other piece of the pie here, we see the value. And especially with platforms like TikTok, for example, like you may not directly be able to see, it's not about the website visits, they might just be going straight to buying the product now.
Right.
Right? And
That's
so
possible.
so it's understanding directly, and sometimes that's measured through the website if they're direct e-commerce, and sometimes that's measured by Amazon sales, and sometimes that's measured by wherever else they're selling. And so you're looking at engagement, you're looking at sentiment, and of course you're looking at sales. And I think we're, for the first time in this industry, we're now giving a little bit more thought to the rest of it than just looking at the sales, which I think most executives would always say. I think bottom line, sales is what matters. Revenue matters. That's all that matters.
I feel like in 2020 we went back to the actual roots of social, which was just the basic human interaction and connection. It was just so nice. I was like, please don't let that go
Did
away.
anybody else enjoy the commercials that came up out of COVID too, where they couldn't have the production crew on site?
Loved it.
I had to get creative.
I get creative. That's what I was thinking about, like Nike originally, when they had to kind of like knit everything together.
Yeah.
It was really cool to watch that. I mean, even like the Super Bowl ads this year,
Yeah.
they weren't the production that they normally
Right.
are, and there was something, I think that we all appreciated about that. And whoever was counseling those, big brands like Nike, Adidas, and Budweiser, and all those folks who bought ads, I think they did a good job of keeping that in mind.
So now that everything's starting to open up and people are, as much as they love their social spaces, there's a prediction that we're not going to be on social media as much. So how do you respond to that? Do you just let your CEO know, hey, we're not going to have as big of growth this year as we did in previous years? Or do you actively fight back against this trend? What's the best strategy for brands?
Put paid dollars in there for sure.
Yeah, just
Double down on paid. I mean, I think that we saw that social marketing budgets increased in 2020, and then I think people saw success from that. And social is often cheaper than other forms of advertising and marketing, and so I don't think that those types of things are going to slow down.
Exactly.
You might see some dips in social engagement on certain platforms. It wouldn't shock me if you saw Facebook dip. And I'd be fine with that. But on a personal level, I would be fine with that. But I think it's too early to predict that, honestly. I think a lot of people got really comfortable and used to having a lot of interactions on social, and they're comfortable with that.
My business grew literally. Like I got laid off actually from my full time, and then maybe a couple months after that, I just kept getting inquiries left and right, And so I don't think social media is going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, not at all.
It's just the figuring out how does it work for my business,
Right.
and how can I maneuver this? How can I make this work for me and my business goals?
Yeah.
So I think if you have that mindset, how can I make this work for me? You'll be successful. It won't be. I always go back to the thought that social media is social. You have to be
That's
social on
right.
it. Like you have to talk to
That's
people.
right.
You have to interact with them. You can't just here's our promotion of the
Yeah.
book, or here's a picture of us doing random things. I don't know, but it's a social activity, and you have to figure out do you need to bring someone on to be that social person for
Yeah.
you, or are you gonna take on that task? So it's a lot of figuring it out. It's a lot of where do we fit in? How do we fit in? How do we make this work for us?
Yeah. I think if anything, everybody's going to get even more social because speaking of the pandemic, I think that's forced businesses to get more creative. They've had to adjust their budgets hugely since a lot of all the in-person stuff went away. So I really think that they're going to. This is the new norm. I think some of the questions that we got to preview before we arrived tonight was talking about a little bit of that of are things going to go back to the way they were? Things never go back to the way they were, no matter what era we're talking about, right? So this is an opportunity for us to declare what we want the new norm to be, and no matter what platforms are changing, if we're focused on the core, which is our customer avatar and the affinity that they have for just everything, their entire persona, and be where they are. And I mean, I don't need to get too much on a soapbox with that. But I think that there's a way to succeed at social no matter what's changing on a per platform basis.
Yeah. I think you are going to see though brands get smarter about and more targeted with where they play, and at least that's the direction that we're really taking brands, is that if you know your audience and your demographic really is on Facebook, and that's where you're going to see the best engagement, that's where you're going to see the best results, then play harder there.
That's right.
And more
Exactly.
go deeper in that space, and you're going to see them say, oh, I know there's these other social platforms popping up, but we're going to stay really focused where we're at. I mean, and as much as we'll dog Facebook, at the end of the day, it's an older generation that's predominantly on there. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to go jump on. I mean, you will see that people are making a play for. Well, look, there is this older demographic on TikTok, but in the end, TikTok is a creator community. And the great thing about Facebook is my mom can post something on Facebook. Like she can put up a picture, she can write something, and she can engage in that. Whereas TikTok, she's never going to create a video. She's never going to do her inspirational day or whatever. And there are people who will, and there is this senior citizen population on. There's a whole subgroup on TikTok too. But by and large, it's Facebook's not going anywhere from that sense, and they do have an opportunity. So I think we'll see them evolve in unique ways. I think the old school, OGs will come out like LinkedIn, and they'll do some new things like you were talking about earlier, what they'll do with the social audio, and that'll be really engaging for that demographic that's not going to go get creative on TikTok. But they're like, oh, there's something new on LinkedIn, I'll try that, or oh, something new on Facebook, that's great, and that's going to further engage them in social. So I think you'll see brands get more focused, more targeted. It's proven platform for them now. It's a lower spend, and as consumers, even the most extroverted of us, we still love the idea of social. Like it's there's something that's happened and evolved in the past year of being at home more often, changing our routines, and I don't think you're going to see people rushing back to the busyness of life. I mean, just take a poll right here. How many of us want to busy ourselves again with meetings and events and everything else? And
I like my new busy. It's a different kind of busy.
it's a different kind of
busy.
busy. Yeah.
Busy. I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
It's not extending yourself beyond. One thing I keep thinking about with all the changes, and will there be an increase or decrease in social use? I think that you touched on it before, and then there's these sub communities, especially on Twitter, Facebook. One of the few things that they did have really going well for them in 2020 was the use of their community groups.
Yes.
And they just
publicize that really well.
yeah, they double down on it because they realize it's working well. It's actually one of the things that I
It keeps you
often
going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use one because I utilize Scrap Social for my social management tool. They have two groups because I'm agency side. I'm in that group, and then they have them for marketing. There's like Daily Carnage, which is just the overall marketing one, and I like to go there to just bit the day, or just kind of commiserate with my fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's communities literally for every single type of interest, and I think that people really honed in on those types of communities. And it's funny because now we have clients going, "How can I get into these communities?
yeah.
How can I tap into them? How can I monetize them?" And I'm like, "Hey, don't be creepy. just
Come
yes,
on.
you can go in there and lurk and be quiet and learn the insights and take that knowledge back." But I think that you'll see that communities are definitely going to be probably one of the big thriving points for social moving forward.
Agreed. You just made me think of something that I want to look into a little bit more. Is like, why hasn't Facebook opened up their ad platform into groups that are, where the admin can manage how often they want, and the admin can then make a revenue stream off of the group that they've curated. I think that would be fantastic, even if that was just done in like, I don't know if they're still doing their Facebook dollars. I don't know if y'all remember when they used to sell like Facebook money.
Yeah.
You could buy like a Facebook gift card, and I guess that didn't work out too well for them. But I just think that would be really fascinating for them to explore that, because there are so many people who've curated really special communities with, really good, great followings. And I agree with you. Like, what keeps me coming back to Facebook are those communities and wanting to engage with those people.
Don't you think that communities are a big draw on every platform where that's
Yeah.
possible to create community?
Right. Yep.
Twitter
Agreed.
has great ones. Reddit is a huge
Yes.
one lately that a lot of clients have been asking,
Yeah.
how can we tap into
Yeah.
it? And I was like, lurk.
I have been preaching Reddit for 6 years.
It's great.
To clients, get in there, get on. It is such a fantastic community, and especially for brands to know what's going on in their industry and their space. And if anything's going to become a meme, it's starting on Reddit first.
Yes.
And I think that was proven finally this year to the public with GameStop's situation. But I've been saying, like, you want to watch where the memes are born? It's
Goes to Reddit, then it goes to Twitter or TikTok.
Yeah.
Definitely Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah.
So then, one of my other questions, you mentioned that your husband is on Clubhouse, and that's the way that he promotes his business.
I didn't say that's how I promote this
Ah,
business.
okay. Does he promote his business via TikTok or via Clubhouse?
No, he doesn't need to promote his business.
Ah, well, you're very lucky.
He's referral based.
Okay.
He generates authentic connections and relationships. He sparks conversations. The thing that I think that we're all driven for, no matter what business is listening to this conversation right now, and we're talking about scalability and where should we be and what customers are we trying to reach. I think you talk about the conversation. Having conversations with people ultimately is what we should be after.
Yes.
Conversations are going to ultimately create not just conversions, but going to create your lifelong fans, your repeat customers. Those conversations. So I'm sorry, I digress
No,
just a
that's
little
okay.
bit, but instead of promoting, it's really connecting and creating a true conversation that takes over. And we want bandwidth to be able to do that. You want your content to go out on autopilot to some level so that you can be freed up, whoever's in charge of doing that, to reach out to those other people and other groups and create community. You want your brand to have its own community too. So we do have to be the engagers and the initiators of that. Okay, now I'm off my soapbox.
But I do want to say, I think a lot of brands are incredibly guilty of talking at their audience. They just drop a post, and a lot of it's very hard selling,
The megaphone.
and they just walk off, and they expect people to
That's
do
not
whatever.
the end, though, right?
No.
That's not where they're supposed to stop.
No.
At
There's
all.
comments that come in, you have DMs, they get frustrated. I was like, no, that's the gold and the beauty. Like, that was honestly some of my most fun days, was when I got to do community management at Fridays in the Container Store, and just making those real authentic connections.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's a part of my daily activities. It's just, talking to people, showing them where to go, or
Yeah.
giving them the correct information. I like to think of social media also as a customer service tool as well.
Absolutely.
Even if you use it just for that, you can definitely cut down on, costs, and people calling a hotline or something like that. But just, making those true connections and keeping them coming back for more.
Absolutely.
Love your customers that
Oh, yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah.
So easily.
So, okay, then I guess the answer to this question is, how do you feel about employees on social media and, all the CEOs that are preaching their own content? Like, is this something that I should be worried about? Or is
Strongly encourage it, employee
Yes.
advocacy, and need it now more than ever.
I think there just have to be some guidelines, of course, on what, they should be posting and what they shouldn't be, or what
or how you respond to people.
Yeah.
I think that's what, is concerned with them. Are they going to go rogue and misrepresent our brand? Well, that's part of your branding guidelines that you should
Yeah.
have set forth and in your meetings so that that's a bit clearer.
Yeah, you want your employees to be your greatest advocates because while if a brand is posting, that's great, but honestly, because social is social, we value relationships so much more when it comes from an individual. So
Yeah.
I can talk about a particular product as a brand and say, my water's great. But if my best friend goes, oh my God, I love this water brand so much, or if they share that post onto their feed, there's instantly more validation and trust because it's coming from a known source. So having employees do that for you, it helps, and also it just helps expand your reach.
Yeah, it's
Helps you
your
get so
overall
much
reach,
further out.
third-party validation, but also the biggest thing we have to remember right now is that Gen Z has entered the workforce.
Yes.
And this is the generation this is the YouTube generation. They grew up direct interaction with the content creator. Gen Alpha behind them has had it more than anyone ever has. They probably, Gen Alpha may not even have TV. I have a 8-year-old and she doesn't watch TV. If you say, hey, I'm gonna put on even Netflix, she's not interested in it. She's already watched it all. She's like, give me YouTube and give me Discord, and she wants to listen and watch and follow people playing games, and that's more engaging and interacting for her. And so as brands, we have to consider our audience, and our employees grew up on social media, and that's how they engage on a daily basis. And so wouldn't you want them to engage that way with your brand, and wouldn't you want that? And so I think brands are going to have to really look at their policies for strip them away and start finding ways to really empower their employees
That's the
and
word.
encourage
Yes.
them to engage.
But it needs to be done authentically because I've seen examples. I think it was Amazon try to have
Oh yeah.
brand advocates, and they literally gave them an awkward script and
Yeah.
designated people. And
You have to be really careful
Yeah.
about the crafted content that you give to people, because when everybody sees the same stuff coming out, you're not empowering them. You're telling them
Yeah,
you can do it if you do it our way.
exactly.
And you're not building trust. And what you have to do is, I always say trust is the currency of business.
yes.
And you've got to be making deposits on all the time. And so what you have to do is like educate, train your team, your company, find people who can be ambassadors and who can be navigators for the others who are coming into social, and empower them to say, hey, here's the hashtags I use, here's how I do it, this is the kind of things I like to share,
Yeah.
so that it's
And put them
not
in a collaboration.
and then have them come back to you and say, what would you like us to be doing? What do you think we could be doing? And we're the social media team, and we're the experts on it, but so are you, because you use it all the time. So tell us how you use it. And then you learn from that. I think a great example was on Clubhouse, kind of going back to that, you asked about it earlier, there was a CMO of a major company who was listening in. She wasn't on yet. There was somebody from that company listening in on Clubhouse, and a conversation started to be had. And they were in there just for their own personal enjoyment. They weren't in there to do social listening. And they started hearing that there was this conversation happening about this brand, and they knew the CMO. They reached out immediately. CMO jumped on the Clubhouse, got in that room, and was able to be popped up on stage and be able to correct some of the stuff that was happening in real time. And I think it was a great example of employee advocacy, where the employee, that the brand didn't have, this is a big brand, not here in Texas, but I just, in fairness and not knowing the whole story, don't want to put the brand's name to the story. But it was just a great example, in the way it was told to me, of being able to, in the moment, stop and change perception, stop the rumors, and create transparency and share what was really going on.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
leadership.
that's leadership. That's jumping in, but that starts with trust and empowerment, and somebody feeling that they could. Hey, let me share this conversation that's going on with you right now. Send a text, and somebody else jump in and say, yeah, let me tell everybody what's going on.
Here's what I love about empowering the employees. It makes them, I'm echoing a little bit of things you've already said, but it makes them such a stronger advocate for the brand, gives them more sense of ownership and pride with whoever's employing them. It really makes them feel like a part of the team. Everybody wants to feel valued. There's no such thing as a low-level person. Everybody should be high value. And so even if they have a different role within the company, you should bring them into the conversation. What if everybody felt a part of the company? And don't you think that would come out passionately in the media that's created for social media?
Yeah.
I think so.
So I don't want to ignore our virtual audience. Jade, can you check and see if there are any comments on the YouTube video? Or for questions? Or sorry, in the right hand panel.
Oh, yeah, no.
And then while we're looking at that, if anybody in our audience has a question, happy to answer that as well.
So I do, because you wanna bring employees in and, all right, they fight sometimes and really don't have any desire. I tried for years to include them and do things and crazy pictures with garage doors and decorating garage doors. I'm not in that industry anymore, but how do you get them? They want to live on their phone while they're working for you. Okay, and at one point I had to take them all away because they were all living on their phone instead of doing what they were supposed to do. But how do you get them engaged to want to do it and not fight it?
I accidentally. So this immediately, since we both have an affinity for Ziglar, I don't know if anybody else on the screen is familiar with Zig Ziglar, but within that company they talk a lot about DISC and personality styles. Now,
Yes.
even if you aren't going down that lane, you know that everybody's wired differently. So it
Yes.
doesn't make sense to take a strong extrovert and then tell them, I'm going to have you write a book. And I'm going to talk to the introvert and say, I'm going to put you in a pity party, right?
Yeah.
So whatever their strengths are, find a fit for that strength so that they are still a part of the process. So of course, naturally, it's going to scare some people if that's not a fit to their personality. You can even put it back on them. What part of this process does interest you? And then stick them in it.
Well, it's funny because I used to do that. One of them was a bodybuilder. On Instagram all the time, but could I get her to do it? No. They shied away from it. So, you know, it's interesting. Yes, I do agree with what you just said, though.
Yeah, and I will say it's challenging from the standpoint of the employer genuinely has to want to do it, no matter what. You can't ever force them to do it. I think that part of the challenge, and this isn't an answer to your question, but I do want to acknowledge that part of the challenge is that when employees feel like they're being forced into participating in employee advocacy, they dig their heels in even harder and they don't want to do it. Versus if they feel passionate enough about the company, they're interested enough in it, and they're given the green light to do it in their own way. Because we saw a lot of times, like when I worked at TGI Fridays, we would often see like on the individual Facebook pages, like the bartenders like posting their own stuff. We never approved any of that. But what we did was we just simply were acting as police to just flag if anything was inappropriate. And like, hey, can you just take it down?
Yeah.
But it was ultimately their decision, and they're the ones that drove the content creation from start to finish. They figured out what their strengths were, what they wanted to showcase, and that's how they ultimately ended up producing that content.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan. I've created a lot of social programs for employee advocacy, and I'm a big fan of reward, surprise and delight, encourage. And so you can say, hey, we have this program. We really want to encourage everyone to share what's going on in social. We have our own content that you can share from the company, but then just however you want, whatever it's like to work here. So it could be, putting those hashtags out, but once you see somebody sharing something on their own, rewarding that. And then, someone sees that the other person did it. When Jessica sees that Jasmine's out there, and then the company acknowledged her and they maybe gave her a gift card, or they celebrated her. We did something with one client where we kind of started helping them identify the employees who were sharing. And we would just, since we knew they were already comfortable sharing, we surprised them with a pizza and balloons that were in brand colors, and did a fun hey, we love having you here at the company. Thank you so much for just always advocating and sharing, and just want to give you a big shout out. And surprising them with who doesn't love pizza. Surprising them with that was just really fun. And of course, they shared that on social media. And the brand shared on social media. Other people saw it.
Multiple benefits paid out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just finding ways that are authentic to your brand to recognize and reward the ones who do decide will start creating a snowball effect, getting other people on board. And I think that's just a neat way to do it.
Yeah.
Recognize and reward.
Gamification is actually really big for employee advocacy. There's entire tools out there for employee advocacy programs for bigger businesses. And there's some that scale for smaller too. But we've tried doing them for companies that don't have prizes, and We've tried them for companies that do have prizes, and shocking, the ones that had prizes or the ones that had the more successful programs versus the ones that didn't. So, I mean, when there's also a, well, what's in it for me component factored in, that definitely helps with employee advocacy as
Yeah.
well.
Good question.
So Jade, did you have any questions on the live feed?
Tim said he loves Ziggy. And we got a virtual wave.
It's just been kind of interesting to me, watching kind of, I feel like in the last 20 years or so, we've seen like a culture from people going out and doing things to ultimately there's been a lot of people actually watching people do things. I guess my question, kind of working in the outdoor space, how do we take that behavior from doing to actually watching, to actually inspire them to go out and do the things that they're watching?
Challenges.
Actually, you said you come from the outdoor community.
Golf, yeah, golf.
Okay. I had a client actually recently, and she was an outdoor enthusiast. Built a community of women of color. 'Cause it was kind of not the norm for us to be outside, but she kind of made a community of that as to where we had the courage and the opportunity to go outside. So she would, film herself and her children, her family, doing things that typically, we wouldn't do to inspire us to get out there. So maybe you can take that approach of, showing, different people, playing golf or, doing some aspect of golf and getting them, out there and outside and, engaging in that activity.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said inspiration and inspire. I think that's a big piece of it is how can you use your social to inspire people, and then I agree, challenges. Challenges are so important. So if you already have engagement, like you have people who are always engaging, and you start recognizing if you're doing some social listening, go in and just analyze who are your top fans who are always liking your posts, and then maybe you do a surprise and delight, slide in their DMs and say, hey, we have something fun for you. I want to challenge you to get out. Because we do a lot of work where we'll go and look on our clients, customers, or fans' social and kind of get a feel for what they're doing and start building profiles of this would be a great person to engage, and here's the influence that they have, and here's why we should do that. And it's taking social media beyond the megaphone approach of I put a great post out, look at how aesthetically pleasing it is, and 5 people liked it. To really leveraging the comments, leveraging the engagement, and that building that loyalty and that relationship with the user. And so finding ways to just kind of jump in or encouraging them to tag somebody in your life who should get out more and should experience and would benefit this, right? And just hit the nail on the head with what you said. I think that's where it's at.
I would also hijack the traffic and the fans from other pages and companies that are already doing it well, and I would engage there.
Can I ask, is your company quite large or is it more small and local?
No, it's startup.
Okay.
Awesome.
So-
Challenger and a pre-built out.
Then definitely hijack your competitors' traffic.
Yeah, and also with that, just if there's communities that you can tap into, because we talked about Facebook communities, Reddits, things like that, it's really easy to organize meetups through those communities and encourage people to actually go outside. I'm part of a fitness group, and hey, this weekend we're gonna go hiking at this park at this time. And we're a group of 20 people, but we all know each other and we're connected. But with you have a much broader interest. I think it's easy for you to probably even join a few groups that are local to the area and say, hey, we're hosting a meetup. Love to see you guys come out. Here's the details.
Along that same vein, I love that you mentioned that. You're so inspiring me to talk more. Thank you. As consider hosting some events if it's an on-site opportunity that you have, bringing in for team building. That could be a benefit, not just having fun. Fun is great, but you can even leverage the fun there for team building for businesses who are coming back or they're trying to create some bonding amongst their remote workers. Hey, let's all gather. And of course, you can always do it just for fun. Put some prepos out there for come have a swing. But talking about connecting with some referral sources, I think you can really hit it big in the business space because there are lots of businesses who love corporate events, already love golfing, so I do some of that.
Anybody else have any other questions?
So we're thinking about adding social media to our portfolio, what we offer to our clients, but none of our clients are local, and so we're kind of wondering how to navigate that space. Like, should we be partnering with someone local? Should we have someone on our team? That was really the kind of questions that we were considering, because it seems like for our clients who have someone local, usually like they'll bring in like a young college student that will, like, they work at, it's a chocolate company, and like they'll take videos of the chocolate factory and their stores and things. And it seems like that's the better approach for our clients than us not being there locally, trying to get into their social media.
You can definitely, I just speaking from experience, a lot of my clients are not here in Dallas. I think I have maybe 2 here. The rest are, there's one in Houston, there's one in Atlanta. And it's really just your communication and your systems of getting the content and figuring out, okay, are we going to do videos? How can you get videos to me? One client, I had her just send me her straight raw videos of her in the clothes or whatever, my clothing client. And I will, do all the magic, I'll edit it, put all the pizzazz on there. So it's just a matter of figuring out, if you want them to send you all the images, or are they going to, fly you out there to go? If they have that in the budget, that would be great. For you to go and take the images. Those are just the questions that you have to ask. And I don't know if you guys are using a content calendar or anything like that, but it's really imperative that you have some sort of calendar, some sort of holding base for all of your content. I personally use Asana. I finally found something that works for me, and I love it. I can color code and communicate with my client. I'll post all of our month's content in there, and she'll just go in there and check it off, make sure it's good to go, approve it, make edits if need be, and that's how you can communicate. So you just have to find the correct or the software system that works best for you in figuring out how you're going to get that content. And you can even, create maybe like a branding guideline or some type of document where you can send to them, and they can literally create content or batch content. You don't have to use a whole month of creating it. You could literally take a weekend or a couple hours out of your day and create your videos for your reels, or images that you need from the store or something like that. You can literally have them do that for a couple hours on it. It's just a matter of planning and a matter of figuring out what they have going on.
Wonderfully put. What she just described to you is a wonderful process. So if this is recorded, I would get the transcript and turn it into an outline and a checklist for yourself.
I had to figure it out. But
So to have a process, whenever you're considering bringing on a client, since you said that this is a new offering you want to be able to provide, your client is going to be trusting you that, number one, you have a process. They don't know what your process is. It's kind of like choreography on stage. Nobody knows the routine. You're in charge of that. So long as you have a process and lead them through that, they'll be ecstatic because that's what they're trusting you with. So I would say, get the transcript, get her checklist.
I'll write it out.
Do some of that. But your process takes pressure off of you and your client.
Yeah.
So I would start by building that process out.
Do you ever provide them with like shot lists or anything? Like, do you ever have clients where you have to coach them on how to take the photography? Because sometimes you have clients that have no earthly idea how to do that.
I do. I will. Some days we'll have Google Meet videos or something. I prefer Google Meets. But I'll literally show them how to hold the camera. The angles, lighting.
Yes.
Go outside, or get a static background, and just to create some consistency within your images, even if that's what you're starting off at.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily have this grand scheme of equipment, super expensive camera. As long as you're
Jasmine adds the pizzazz. She already said she adds the pizzazz. So bring your raw stuff.
I
Sometimes
can
you
take
yes.
photos just fine, honestly.
Yeah.
They really do. Just wipe your lens. Half the time people just don't wipe your lens. Just wipe your lens, and you'll have clear you know, clean
Your
cut
sound-
pictures. take
That's
your
your
time.
learning from today.
Yeah.
If you learn anything, just
Take
like
your
your
Don't
time.
wear sunglasses in your photos because people
Remove the
need that
trash
context.
around the photo to
Yes.
take time to clean up the background environment.
It's just the little things.
You know,
but-
and to merit something else that you're saying, I love everything you're saying, and I'm going to take some of your ideas. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is when you're, so you said you're working remotely, all of your clients are going to be remote. If you're going to ask them for media, do have a list of, like I had a client on location who actually was golfing, and I told him, hey, while you're out on the golf course, here's the shots I want you to take.
Yes.
While you're in the sand and if you're hitting a divot or whatever the thing, I gave him a list of shots that I want him to take while he's out. So, you know, in context for your restaurant clients, then you could just, from your own creative mind or whoever the creative people are on your team, come up with that shot list and give to your client. That's also going to be a trust earner.
And sometimes I literally, like, me and my clients now, we have this bond now. I'll send them, like, TikTok videos, like, hey, can you, like, recreate this in your own way? Or I'll keep, you know, a couple of links of some really cool videos or images that I've seen and just keep, like, a bank of that for them to pull from. That way, if we're both just completely stuck on ideas, we have something to where we can kind of mirror that. So just always, I mean, of course, you're going to have to always be on, you know, looking for creative ideas, but if you see something and you really like it, screenshot it, bookmark it, share it to them, whatever. Because you're probably going to come back to it eventually when you need that idea.
Yeah, and to make it scalable, start building your own templates for everything. A template for your photos, a template for your different types of videos. You should have continue to build. I mean, this should never stop as part of the process in the business. Continue to build out your library of templates. Doesn't mean that you're going to have identical every time. A template is just a place to start from, so you're not with a whole whiteboard every time that you need to do something new.
That's
It's
actually
a huge
something we do
time
at our agency for our clients because we're like,
Yes.
man, we cannot.
I have templates for my clients too. Like
Yes.
here's all their color sets and everything
Yep.
fitted out. So whenever we need to crank out a new overlay for their YouTube video, we can do it in seconds.
Exactly, because it's like I'm not going to go bother the head of our creative to go do this.
Yeah.
I was like, well, and if do you have Canva? Or are you planning to kind of use Canva or anything like that?
So we currently don't do any social media. with our
Okay.
clients.
They're
This,
planning to.
this is something that
Got
we're-
it. I highly recommend Canva Pro if you're not super design friendly. I'm not a
Faster than
professional.
Adobe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But expensive. So I highly recommend that for your program. Like she's talking about building templates, you can build fantastic templates in there. It's also great for housing your images that you collect from your clients. If you're trying to figure out, like, let's say that some of your clients might come to you and have, like, I have 100 images just sitting on the side, which those are golden clients, they're magic. Use things like Dropbox to have them send that information over to you.
Warn them not to email you.
Oh,
each
God.
individual.
Because they'll try it.
Right.
You'll be frustrated.
And that's for another session where we can give you all the do's and don'ts for all those pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Well, great. Any other questions? Well, with that, it is about time for drinks and more food. So thank y'all so much for coming out here and speaking to us. And thank y'all so much for coming out and attending. I am so excited and very thankful. So
Thank you for tuning in on
Thank you.
YouTube.
Yes,
Thank you for
guys.
having us.
Okay, so I want all four of you to stand up.
Okay.
I'd like to take a fun picture. I'm gonna put us all on IG.